Welcome to the San Jose Heritage Rose Garden, an unexpected jewel located in downtown San Jose's Guadalupe River Park Gardens and in the flight path of the San Jose Airport. A botanical collection, it contains over 3,000 roses comprising over 2,000 varieties, more varieties than any other public garden in the Western Hemisphere. 6 sections take you through the evolution of roses over time. To appreciate the evolution of roses, start in Section O, a priceless collection of old European garden roses that illustrates the fascinating tie between human history and the history of roses. Our oldest roses are found in this section, with some more than 500 years old. These ancient roses are what distinguish this garden from other public rose gardens. Native roses from Europe and the Middle East were cultivated, and from these, classes of roses developed. Classes represented in this section include gallicas, albas, centifolias, mosses, sweetbriars, and scots. Most of these European old garden roses bloom only in the spring, have red, pink, or white petals, and boast an especially fragrant bloom. Individual roses became extinct when they fell out of fashion throughout history. Thus, old rose varieties are difficult to find, identify, cultivate, and preserve. In the 1700s and 1800s, new trade routes brought perpetually blooming Asian roses to Europe. Gardeners crossed them with European roses, developing new classes, including the Portlands, Bourbons, and hybrid perpetuals. This section also includes hybrid rugosas. Many of these roses were imported to the eastern U.S. and then crossed the continent in covered wagons and were planted by settlers in cemeteries and gold rush towns. These roses are still being discovered today and are labeled found until their provenance is determined. Around 1811, South Carolina farmer John Champneys and local nurseryman Philippe Noisette developed the only rose class that originated in the United States, the Noisettes. China and tea roses were developed from Asian imports with influence from the Bourbon and Noisette classes. Breeding for new colors, larger flowers, and a sweeter fragrance produced many great reblooming beauties, but they depended on greenhouses to survive winters in Northern Europe. The tea roses in this section love our mild winters and are among the first to bloom in the spring. In 1867, French rosarian Guyot created a landmark hybrid tea by crossing a hybrid perpetual with a tea rose. Called La France, its creation marked the beginning of the modern rose era. There are now over 10,000 varieties of hybrid teas, many of which can be found in this garden. Hybrid teas and floribundas are our most modern roses. Roses in this section were created after 1960, and many are commercially available. Cultivated for large flowers with straight and strong stems, beautiful color variations, and their ability to repeat flower, these roses were not bred for disease resistance, because this was the era of chemicals, and gardeners were expected to spray regularly. Fragrance was secondary, so most roses here have a weaker perfume than old garden roses. We do not spray our roses for pests or diseases, or use any commercial fertilizers, so healthy roses here should grow well in your home garden. The shrub roses in this section grow in rounded shapes, bloom continuously, and do not fit any other class. They are the only class defined by habit rather than breeding. Classes include hybrid musk, Lambertiana, and Austin roses. Englishman David Austin crossed modern hybrid teas and floribundas with old garden roses, such as gallicas, in the 1980s. to produce healthy, fragrant shrubs. Austin shrub roses are favorites among beginning gardeners because they're easy to grow. The inner 2 rows of each section contain miniature roses that descended from a few dwarf China roses. Miniature can refer to the bloom, leaf, or plant size. The miniatures produce a beautiful, ever-blooming array of colors, and polyanthas are in the second ring of beds in sections O and P. That brings us back to the center. Thanks for joining us on the tour, and remember that you can browse the catalog, learn about rose adoption and volunteer opportunities, and more on our website at grpg.org, or by visiting the South Bay Heritage Rose Group's website at heritageroses.us.